who is a writer at the Washington Times of many years, investigative journalist, White House correspondent, joins us to give us his take on the debate of Monday night. The fact that it's now coming out that Obama did know that it was, quote, a coordinated, premeditated terror attack in Benghazi. Yeah, no kidding, that was professional. That's big news today. We've also got more threats to riot and kill Romney if Obama loses. That's finally being covered by the dinosaur media. We're going to cover all that with Joseph Curl, who was actually at the last debate on Monday and the one before that. And he's been very kind to join us on his busy schedule. Joe, where should we start here? How about the so-called Donald Trump announcement? I hadn't gotten to that yet. I mean, I tell you, talk about stringing people along. Make that announcement and tell us what you think of it.
Well, it's actually dueling announcements and publicity hogs. You had Gloria Allred this morning going to court in Massachusetts to get unsealed some records that apparently Mitt Romney testified in the divorce case of a colleague, and they ended up pushing that back until Thursday. We're really not even sure what's in there, but Romney's lawyer eventually came out and said he doesn't care if it comes out or not. It's testimony that he gave. He doesn't care. So doesn't sound like there's much there. And then Donald Trump had said he had some great revelation. Everyone was speculating again about, divorce papers from Obama, birth certificate stuff, which Donald's already been involved in. Turns out when he made his announcement at noon, it was a plea for Obama to release his college applications and his passport application, and if he did so, Trump will donate $5 million to the charity of Obama's choice. So really a day of high excitement with all of this supposed stuff happening, and then in the end of the day, two washouts from two publicity hogs.
And Trump just continues to do this. Same thing with Gloria Allred. I mean, quite frankly, Romney helped out one of his friends, and in 20 years of marriage, Obama and his wife almost got divorced once. I mean, that's probably happened to most people.
Right.
I mean, this is really scraping the bottom of the barrel, but I think that's because both camps don't want to go after real corruption that's out there. They always love this, kind of one-off tabloid stuff.
Yeah, and again for Obama, this sort of thing, and who knows the coordination between Allred and even, Donald Trump. This is, again, just distracting from major issues. You've got all of this hubbub happening on a day, as you were mentioning in the lead in there. It turns out they have actual emails back and forth from State Department people. As many as 400 different people CC'd or involved in this conversation going on live while the Benghazi attack was happening, including an hour after the attack had concluded, as far as they knew, a claim by a terrorist group, an immediate claim of responsibility, which means that the White House has known since day one, since hours after this. Which
makes it premeditated lying.
Yeah, it starts to look like a massive cover-up. I mean, as much as the media wants to make it sound like Obama mentioned terrorist attacks and terrorist groups and that sort of thing in Benghazi, he really didn't. He said, as we talked about last time I was on, acts of terror, nothing about specifically. And then we spent the next 10 days, up to 2 weeks, with them blaming it on a spontaneous demonstration that grew out of this video that was on YouTube over the summer that nobody saw. So it's really starting to look like a massive cover-up. I'm shocked that I looked this morning, Washington Post, New York Times, not even on their website. The story is not even there. So, millions of people aren't going to even hear about this story. It'll be interesting to see tonight who covers it on the major networks. It was broken by CBS last night, so they're already on top of it. But today you're getting a cold shoulder from an awful lot of the mainstream media on this story.
Your take on the last debate, I guess you've been at all of them. Again, Joe Curl, Washington Times, joining us. I have to say, I mean, I think they interrupted him. It looked to me like Obama was given more time, but Romney seemed a lot less combative and really let Obama get away with a lot of stuff. And not that I'm even, here defending Romney. It's just that Romney did so good in the first couple of debates, it seemed to fizzle at the end, and kind of the right-wing media spun it that, well, Romney was more presidential. Well, they tried that the first time with Obama. I'll say Obama looks physically ill. He doesn't look like he looked 4 years ago. And again, it's kind of like rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. But what's your overall view on the debate we saw?
Yeah, I think that was a calculated method by the Romney people. Come out of the chute very strong. I think they did a pretty good job in the second one because they knew Obama was going to come out and they had to be combative, and that was probably the most combative of the three. But I think by the time we got to the third one, they were really thinking, you know, don't mess this up. We're on a good thing here. The last thing you need is to get too worked up about things, to get too argumentative, to make any major mistakes. And so I think they were just at that point being very cautious. Let's just, you know, get through 90 minutes, have a discussion. So the real point that I think a lot of people looked at that debate was that was really supposed to be the highlight for Obama. Obama has been doing foreign policy for the last 4 years. Of course, Romney hasn't, and no one really does. He's not the president or the Secretary of State. So it was really a test on him to see if he looked as if he could handle that job. And I think, you know, whether people said he won or lost or whatever the final numbers were, he really did look as if he could handle the job of commander-in-chief, and I think an awful lot of people said, yeah, okay, he can do this job, and, you know.
Sure, exactly, because we're political junkies, so we're watching and it's totally boring, but Romney understands, with most people, it's just how does he act, does he smile, does he look good? I mean, it does come down to who looks more presidential. It's so ridiculous that that's what you've got to do to win.
That's right. Well, and that's, you know, and the numbers were way down. And remember, you had Game 7 of the Major League Baseball. You had Monday Night Football, and it was a 90-minute debate on foreign policy, which a lot of people's eyes just glaze over on that topic anyway. I'm guessing that a lot of people watched 30 minutes of it, if they watched it all, and then flipped it off and went to something else, because it was an awful dry debate. It was already not going to be electric and exciting because they were sitting in a chair next to, in chairs next to each other at the same table. Really didn't have the dynamics that the second debate had. And, about halfway through, they had all used their talking points at least once, and then was kind of a rehash for the whole, last 45 minutes. So it was now fascinating. But again, for Romney, all they really needed to do was get through the thing, and Obama, really needed to hit it out of the ballpark. Don't think he did. He did fine. That's why it was just kind of a wash. And at the end of it, I think a lot of people just went, okay, we're finally done with that. Let's get into the next 2 weeks of this thing.
Joe Curl, Washington Times, joins us. I'm asking a lot of the questions here, and I've got some more I want to ask you specifically on the poll numbers we're seeing. But before we go there, and who you think is starting to pull ahead, Romney is surging. Are there any other points you want to make before we run out of time here?
Well, I think right now you're starting to really see a shift in some of these battleground states. Rasmussen's got Ohio tied. He's got New Hampshire. Romney up 4 in New Hampshire. That's a big deal because the one thing that the mainstream media just says over and over again is no Republicans ever won the White House without winning Ohio, and that is true. Although actually 150 years ago, I think one did, but it's certainly true nowadays. But there are an enormous number of pathways that are opening right now for Romney, including Michigan's not really in play, but it's getting close, 6 points. Wisconsin's in play.
Colorado.
Pennsylvania is getting tighter. And then you've got places like Colorado, Nevada. Those things, if those places move, Colorado, Nevada, and New Hampshire, assuming that Romney wins Virginia and North Carolina, which is really looking like that's going to happen, and obviously Florida, that's a pathway for Romney to get there without winning Ohio.
Sure, and as you know, the University of Colorado, who hadn't been wrong in several decades, they've got a 76% chance that Romney's going to win the popular vote, but that doesn't win elections. It's electoral college. But looking at that, just bottom line, from my own novice research, I know you focus specifically more on this. I mean, it looks like Romney pretty much is now even ahead in the electoral college.
It does, and if really, we will know. Viewers out there will know on election night what's about to take place. If he wins Ohio, Romney is probably done. He probably will win. If he wins New Hampshire, Ohio, North Carolina and Virginia, that'll be in the Eastern time zone, so that'll be probably before 10 o'clock. We'll have a very good idea of where the rest of the country's going to go. And that happened in 1980 when Reagan was pretty much in the same kind of position, trailing Carter by an awful lot. A couple of good debates. People started to see him as presidential. You remember what happened then? It was a landslide across the country. It just sort of steamrolled. And there are a lot of people that are throwing out there right now that this may well be that kind of case. May really just
my gut tells me that Obama is out just because the same reason Obama was brought in. People are like, hey, we want the economy to do better. We're just going to put anybody in there. I mean, we could have a ham sandwich running against Obama right now, and the ham sandwich might win. And now that people see that Romney is more animated, I agree with you. Everything shifted toward him, so he will win, minus some type of false flag, some type of October surprise. This is just out. We've confirmed over a month. Anonymous has been allowed with people with official websites and stuff, so the cops could have gone there to say they're going to storm the White House on November 5th, the day before the election. There's now videos that the police are doing nothing about, saying that they're going to bomb federal buildings. Obviously not Anonymous, the general hackers, but people, probably provocateurs. This looks like Justice Department false flag, Fast and Furious type stuff, or they're letting idiots talk and hoping something's happening. I think that's the strategy, too, with all the riot talk, just still exploding after the last debate Monday, calling for death and murder and mayhem, and a very light Secret Service response. They say they're visiting some people. What's your concern on that? I mean, wild cards here, Joe Curl from the Washington Times. I mean, what type of tricks? Because we know all these White House advisors, Robert Shapiro told the Financial Times of London, and I have it quoted in Paul Watson's article, that minus a new Oklahoma City or 9/11, Obama's not going to get reelected.
Well, that's what's been rumored out there. We had heard some rumors that Obama was going to announce some sort of accord with Iran, that they squared away all their problems. Excuse me, and that they've got an agreement on nuclear weapons. That's something that's been floating around out there. But the violence, the threats of violence and riots and threats directly against Romney. It's been fascinating in how the Secret Service is always very quick to check out any sort of thing that has to do with Barack Obama. And it's striking that they haven't released all of the investigations they've been doing. Their Twitter's, like you guys have posted on InfoWars, Twitter's just, running away with these things. There's hundreds of these different threats. It seems like the Secret Service should be on top of that, and we should be hearing about all of these investigations they're doing. I think that's a worry across the country. It's just, what will the response be? Obviously, the urban centers are much more prone to vote for a Democrat and Barack Obama. So there's worry that if there's the appearance of any sort of improprieties, and especially if the media feeds those speculation or rumors of improprieties during the election, that could actually make things very bad. They'd have to be calling for calm and putting out an awful lot of information on how this has been above board. But we're starting to see already in the early voting some anomalies on voting. A machine in Ohio, somebody was trying to vote. They pushed the button for Romney, and then when they were about to vote, it switched it over to Obama. So we're starting to see reports of that, and we're not.
That is pouring into my office, Joe, and I'll just report. Whatever the case is, nonpartisan here. I happen to be a constitutionalist libertarian, so I agree with more Republican, ideas than Democrats, obviously. But I'll report just as I see it, and all I'm getting is feedback that people are unable to vote for Mitt Romney, except for one. I mean, it's got to be 10 to 1. And these are people that are smart and know who they're voting for, and it's just not even letting them vote straight Republican tickets.
Right, and we saw a report this morning that in Palm Beach, people are filling out absentee ballots, sending those in, and then when they get there, they're put in the hands of election workers, and they actually have to take them over to the machine and put the actual vote in the machine. So then, there's the real questions about whether that could be rife with all kinds of problems and mayhem. So we're just starting to hear these things. I mean, I assume both sides are going to have lawyers all over the place, but that's kind of for election night. You're going to have something, people have started to say upwards of 45% of Americans vote early. So you could have half of the voting population, half of the people that will vote, actually voting before election day.
And that gives the system a lot. And plus, we've seen Obama saying, vote early. We've seen Michelle Obama saying, hey, you may have an overflowing toilet. Vote now, because we know statistically it's much easier to manipulate absentee ballots or early voting. What about the troops? Last time I checked, 90+% of the troops didn't get their ballots and aren't going to be able to vote. Yeah,
they've been saying, and this is what's been interesting, they've been saying that you will get them, within 10 days of the election, and that they're guaranteed to have arrived by 10 days before the election. So we're still a few days away from that, and that would be plenty of time to get the thing and send it back. But the really frightening thing is if you get to 10 days, then 9 days, then 8 days, then it's really too late for you to get it. So we'll have to see it 10 days out if everyone has these things in hand. They may have all gone out in the last couple of days. They may be on their way there. They may arrive en masse to, millions of people, which is what they're, all these different election registrars are saying that's what's happening.
Man.
But we'll have to wait and see. My daughter's down in Virginia Tech. She's waiting for her absentee ballot. Still doesn't have it. So, well, yeah, I'm interested when she'll get it and when everyone else will get these things.
Joe Curl, people can go up to WashingtonTimes.com and see your articles and others. There's one at WashingtonTimes.com. Emails show U.S. officials told of militants within hours of Benghazi attack. That's Sean Waterman with that report. Obama says Latino vote is key to victory, vows immigration reform. And we know the illegals are all out there trying to vote. It's just amazing. This is all going on. But in your gut, are you concerned about some type of trick being played? I just don't see an administration that would pull off Fast and Furious. I just don't see them giving up power easily.
No, and that's been sort of the frightening side of the Obama administration is, a really sort of lawless and rampant Justice Department that will do things like, threaten the Gallup organization on its polling techniques and alleging, improprieties and infractions, putting pressure on, a polling agency, which is...
Hold on, got to go to break. One more segment with Joe Curl. Alex Jones here with a very important announcement for truth seekers. We've carried a lot of amazing films and books over the years on the online video bookstore at Infowars.com. And out of all the titles we've carried, one stands out because it is just so chillingly convincing. And that's Dreams from My Real Father by Joel Gilbert, available at Infowars.com. This film exposes the fraud that Obama is like nothing I've seen. If you want to know who Obama's real daddy is, this is the film for you. Don't forget, your purchase supports our broadcast and our growing media network. You'll also find at InfoWarsShop.com, None Dare Call a Conspiracy by Gary Allen, the book that woke me up. We're also carrying Behind the Green Mask, UN Agenda 21 by Rosa Corey. This book is coffin nails to the globalist takeover. The Greater Good, the most professional and up-to-date film I've ever seen exposing the scourge that is vaccines. These titles and a lot more are all available at InfoWarsShop.com. Speaking of election anomalies, we're going to be looking at them with Bev Harris. Her book got turned into a HBO documentary on black box voting, and then we're seeing a lot of anomalies across the board. So we're going to be looking at that for the next 30 minutes of the next hour. And then it's going to be phone calls and news. I may be having a confirmed military whistleblower on about preparations for civil unrest. It's confirmed he's in the military. It's confirmed he is who he says he is. And if it's accurate, and we're still vetting it, it is super creepy. So that may be on the last 30 minutes today. I don't know. Joe Curl, the Washington Times, is our guest. For radio listeners, go to WashingtonTimes.com. It's happening now. It's the top story on the left-hand side. Or if you're a PrisonPlanet.tv viewer, I'm streaming video of it right now. Obama says Latino vote is key to victory, vows immigration reform in 2013. And I was talking to Joe during the break. He said that's what he'd like to close with, is that story. That's actually pretty big because Obama didn't want this balkanizing statement out yet. Joe, give us your take on that.
Well, and he spoke. It was a fascinating sort of development all this morning. he was calling the Des Moines Register to get their endorsement. It's a very big endorsement in Iowa. If you get the Register's endorsement, it sways a lot of people. So he called the newspaper, did 30 minutes with the editorial board there, but the White House demanded that it all be off the record. So this morning, the Des Moines Register wrote a sort of a snippy little editorial saying he really should release this. We talked with him. Why can't we just release what he said? And the White House felt an awful lot of pressure, enough pressure to finally go ahead and release it. And what's interesting about it is he says at one point, you know, well, since this is off the record, I can say this, because he wants to speak bluntly and actually say what he's thinking, which is, I did a really important thing for my reelection, which was the DREAM Act, you know, basically naturalizing millions of young illegal aliens. And the Republicans have a problem with that issue. I'm in good position. If I get reelected, it will be because of the Latino vote. And when I get reelected, I will push through immigration reform. So he's basically making a very, you know, blunt vow to do this, and he's making a blunt admission that this is how he intended to get reelected, to spike that.
And then if he gets that, it would be game over, because a lot of these people coming here are getting on welfare, and as long as they get their welfare, they'll vote to take my guns, and that's why I'm against this unlimited immigration. We already have the most open immigration in the world, and I don't want to become Latin America, or I'd move down there, because those are not free countries.
And you've got big cities like Los Angeles now is moving ahead with driver's licenses for illegal aliens, and that's a huge problem, because that's an official identification document. Once you have one of those, you can do an awful lot of things with that. I think that, you know, has always been. I mean, imagine trying to get a driver's license in Switzerland if you're not a citizen of Switzerland.
Listen, if I go to Mexico, I got to jump through special hoops to even buy land. They're not going to give me a driver's license. I mean, I can't go down there and get free health care, or go down there with my wife and say, hey, I'm here to have a baby, pay for it.
Right, and this whole, you know, the whole idea now that the only party that will look after the interests of Americans from other countries, and that's really where this sort of swoops over. I mean, you would imagine that legal immigrants to this country would not be all that happy with illegal immigrants. They had to go through a process to get here. These illegal immigrants didn't. But the underlying message is that Republicans will be mean to Hispanics, and Democrats love Hispanics.
And that's not even true. The Republicans are trying to legalize. And it isn't even a Hispanic issue, even though that's the main group. It's an issue of giant third world populations, criminals, all of it coming here. Joe Curl, thank you so much for the time with us. We'll watch your reports at WashingtonTimes.com, and hope to talk to you before the election's up.
Sounds good. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you, sir. Visit Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the sites, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want.